So you just logged into SUPERVIVE and want to help your team win more games by playing a protector. Or let's be honest, you got forced here because your friends think you were dog shit. Or no one else wants to play them. Yes, trust me. I've been there and I'm here to help. Well, it sucks to be them because they are missing out on some of the most fun characters SUPERVIVE has to offer, including Elluna, Zeph, and by far my favorite, Oath. So using my knowledge as a top performer on all of the protectors in past alpha playtests, let's talk about everything you need to know to dominate on each character within the role. Before we talk about each of their kits, let's talk about what the role protector even means. Does it mean tank? Does it mean healer? No, absolutely not. The first thing you have to understand about playing a protector is that you are not playing a healer. You are playing a support character. While every single character heals their team in this role and it is a core part of their kits, it does not tell the whole story. Each character provides support to their teams, whether it be through denying or allowing easy resurrections, setting up kills for the rest of the team, or speeding up traversal around the map. If all you do is play protectors to heal, you are fundamentally doing something wrong. And who wants to sit around and heal all day anyway? That shit's boring. And it'll make your friends think you are still terrible, and we are trying to prove them wrong. Now let's talk about characters. If you are not aware, every single character in SUPERVIVE, no matter the role, has a passive, a primary fire, or an auto, as I like to call it, a dash, 2 additional abilities, and finally an ultimate. For each protector, we will follow a sequence where we discuss their passives, auto attack abilities, and then their ultimates. Then we will discuss deeper parts of their kits that you should know before you start grinding out that character. One last thing before we start, because this video is being made in the alpha build of SUPERVIVE, balance may be different on the character and specifics might change, but general playstyles will likely stay the same, so be on the lookout for any major changes in the patch notes. Timestamps are in the description, but let's start out with the first protector, Elluna. Elluna is our favorite little bunny magician in the SUPERVIVE community. I mean, just look at how cute she is. Anyway, while she does output a lot of healing for her team, her true power comes out of the way she enables her team to be aggressive and isolate picks throughout the fight. That being said, let's look at her passive. Perhaps the strongest thing about her kit right now is how she revives her team. While other players have to stand on top of wisps to res them, Elluna can just walk over wisps to backpack them and res them on the go. Just know that when you do this, enemies will target you, because if they do enough damage, the wisps Elluna is carrying will pop out. Because Elluna can res this way, you want to try to stay alive as much as possible in team fights to keep them going alive and kicking as long as possible. Don't be silly and die for no reason. I've seen this way too many times. That being said, you don't necessarily have to be scared either. Elluna can do some pretty good damage with her auto attacks, especially when tapped onto single targets in quick succession. Yes, her healing is very strong, but being aggressive with the character is what will set you apart from others just starting off on Elluna. Every single hit with your M1 will apply a moonburn effect that restores mana on hits as well. More mana means more healing, more dashing, and more carrying your team. While hitting your autos does a lot for your team, nothing does more than hitting successful routes that are bound to your right click by default. The way this ability works is that if you hit the projectile, it slows the enemy down for a short moment and then traps them and anyone within the radius to the ground via the rooted effect. This gives your team ample time to clean up targets or even combo some ultimates in there for some sick kills. It also sends people off the map if they are over the abyss, which is super satisfying. These abilities can be pretty hard to hit, but with practice, you will be making a big impact in no time. Try to find ways to make it easier to hit by looking for abilities like kingpin hooks or other stuns to follow up on. It doesn't always have to be the hardest shot in the game. Make it easier on yourself if you can. Now let's talk about both of Elluna's dashes. Her ground dash is on a very short cooldown and only shifts her position a little bit. This is perfect for dodging kingpin hooks and other abilities that require pinpoint execution. Her air dash is on a much longer cooldown but sends her flying much farther. This is perfect to use when traveling over the abyss or once you pick up a teammate's wisp and need to live long enough for the res to go through. The coolest part about these dashes, however, is that part of their cooldown is refunded for each teammate you dash through. This is the same for her next ability that heals her teammates. So if you are in a pinch and really need to get a bunch of heals flowing, try to find ways to dash through your teammates to reduce your cooldown further. By using this tactic, it heavily increases the healing output you are capable of achieving as well. I mean, the numbers do not lie, and there's a reason why the best Ellunas always have the highest healing in every playtest. Dashing through your teammates is not the only way to get more out of Elluna's heal though. The ability functions by first creating a healing field around her that heals over time for a few seconds. Then it has a burst of healing for a greater amount at the very end. What makes this heal even better is that it can be thrown to another position or ally by pressing the ability again while it is active. When this happens, it boosts the total output of the heal as well. So the tactic is to press the button and then throw the heal to a teammate that is low right before it pops to maximize your healing output. Getting the timing down was really hard for the first few games as Elluna, but once you get a feel for it, it isn't too bad. Last but certainly not least is Elluna's ultimate, which is pretty strong. Upon using the ultimate, she attaches an illuminated beam to a friendly that heals an insane amount over time until the cooldown is over, where it either bursts the teammate to full health or revives them depending on whether they are alive on their feet or are a wisp. When they are revived, they are returned to Elluna's position. But again, this is only the case when they are revived from a wisp, not if they are still standing at the end. While this ability may sound absolutely busted, well, it kind of is. What I mean to say is that you can still mess it up because you have to stay close enough to your target in order for the ability to continue channeling. You typically want to use this ability when your frontline character is going in or a ranged character is getting overwhelmed, as it negates all of the resources the enemy team uses to kill these characters, leaving them with nothing to finish the fight out with. If you can understand the basic ideas behind Elluna's kit, you will get more out of her. She may be pretty beginner friendly, but this doesn't mean that she can't be really strong if you perfect her. That being said, the ability I tend to get first on the drop depends on the situation. If my team is safe, I get the right click to root the first mob pack. If another team is close by, I try to get my dash first so that I can live in the fight a little bit longer. The second ability I get is whichever of the two I didn't get first, and then I pick up my heal at level 3. Level 4 is really up to you and what you like, but I personally get the dash because I can reduce my cooldowns much faster this way. Level 5 is the ultimate, and then you are set for the rest of the game. I typically max out my root, but build Elluna the way that you like. In terms of items, I usually always go for the Tech Blade Mana Blade setup, as Elluna's heal scales with damage stats. Sometimes I will go for a Mana Helmet instead if I feel as though I'm struggling to live in the meta, but that's a topic of conversation for a little bit of a later video. Powers are also just up to you as well. I personally love the Chonker or Punch, as they are great ways to force pressure off of me, but I can also appreciate a Guardian Angel or Mana Cloak to make resurrecting my teammates easier. You don't always have options though in Battle Royale, so it's always nice to try new combinations so you're ready to go no matter what the game throws at you. The big things to take away from Elluna is that while she might be an easier character, there are still a lot of ways to get more value out of her. Push yourself to be aggressive in a safe manner, and your team will thank you on top of all the other healing that you're outputting. Those reses won't go unnoticed either, I promise you. Once you do these things, maybe your friends will even let you play some Oath like a real champion. Or maybe you'll just fall in love with Elluna, which is fine. She's not all that bad, I guess. Okay, you got me. I just want to talk about Oath. Jeez, I'll do it then. Oh, and if you plan on being an Oath main, welcome home, buddy. You're gonna absolutely love this guy. Oath is kind of like the pick-me girl in high school. He's not like the other protectors, except he's actually fun and not annoying like she was. The reason he isn't like Elluna and Zeph is because he doesn't currently lean into healing nearly as much as the others do. This isn't a problem though, because remember, protectors are supports and not healers, and Oath does an excellent job of supporting his team with excellent crowd control abilities. Keeping this in mind, let's look at Oath's abilities. Let's start off with his passive that allows him to stun targets he pushes into walls. This is really important to keep in mind, as it helps him fulfill his role of controlling the battlefield and keeping his teammates alive. It's easier to understand when this comes in handy once we discuss the rest of his kit though, so let's talk about Oath's auto attack that is really interesting. By tapping M1 once, Oath throws his hammer, landing on the ground. When on the ground, it provides vision for his team. But when just starting out, this isn't a super important detail. If the player taps again, the hammer recalls back like a boomerang, doing damage on its way back as well. So you want to try to line up enemies to do a lot more damage. Holding M1 with the hammer in Oath's hand charges his melee attack that does massive damage whenever the character flashes. The great part about this is that if you whack an enemy into a wall, it stuns them for a short time, allowing your team to follow up. Next up on Oath's right click, we have his shield. While Oath looks like the guy that can soak up a bunch of damage with his shield, that's just not him. The shield's health scales with how much health he has. His shield dies extremely fast, and the moment your shield goes down, you effectively lose the fight until you get it back. Instead of just blocking meaningless damage, you need to use the shield to block key ultimates or abilities, especially things like Kingpin hooks. Do your best to not use the shield and block meaningless damage and dodge it instead. Now we're using our noggin. The next part about the shield is that when it's up, you can use your shift to bash your shield, essentially. When it bashes, it knocks enemies back and makes it so that your shield takes no damage while still blocking. This means you can block high burst damage if you time your bash right, and even cancel some ultimates by bashing people into walls, stunning them. Arguably the most important ability on Oath, though, is his dash. It allows him to get around the map quickly and absolutely demolish creeps with one fell swoop. It's so goddamn satisfying. Just look at it. Bang, bang, bang. Just make sure that you don't launch yourself too far into the fight. It's pretty easy to do that. Don't have too much fun. But now let's talk about the heal. The heal goes down in a circle zone area around wherever your hammer is, replenishing health over time in its aura, bursting for a bunch at the end. Keep in mind this heals both allies and enemies, and even enemy wisps, so you have to be careful not to revive them on accident. This is probably going to get patched out as none of the other protectors have this problem, but it's a thing, so you have to play around it. Just like the shield, the amount of healing you do scales with how much health you have, but to be honest, no matter what, this isn't usually used for the heal since it takes a lot of mana and doesn't do a whole lot of healing anyways. What this ability is really good at doing is rezzing wisps off of the ground on your team and repairing your shield if it breaks. You can throw your hammer to a wisp, use the heal, and when the circle bursts, it will apply a guardian angel effect that slowly rezzes them over time so long as they don't get stepped on by the enemy team. This will win you fights, as you can res while still controlling space, which is super sick in my opinion. Nothing is more sick about Oath's kit, however, outside of his ultimate ability that unlocks at level 5. Upon casting your ultimate, Oath slams the ground, creating a fissure on a line that stuns enemies. Then 4 rectangles will burst after, dealing damage in quick succession. The 2 things you need to know about this ultimate is that it is not instant. It is not like Reinhardt in Overwatch, and it takes time to travel. The second thing is that you need to aim it like you were aiming the fissure and not the subsequent rectangles. The fissure line is the one that stuns. If you miss that, it is very easy to get out and run away. Perhaps a little too easy, but I digress. Oh yeah, and if you do hit a big slam, you have to scream big slam, or you aren't truly an Oath main. If I ever catch any of you sending me a clip and I don't hear big slam just like that, I'm not watching the rest of the clip. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Now, in terms of what abilities I get first, I usually start with Dash. Dash the first camp I drop on to get level 2, pick up my shield, then pick up my heal at level 3, and upgrade my Dash again at level 4. Everything else is up to your discretion once you get your ultimate at level 5. Now that we have gone over the basics of the cooldowns, let's talk about items and powers. I will go much more in depth with this segment in the advanced guide I plan to do of this character later on, possibly at the end of 2024, and to be honest, it will change a lot as the game develops over time. But typically what I like to run is Mana Blade with either a Tech Blade, Bladed Helm, or Quick Blade. It's really up to you and the composition you are running alongside what characters are popular to play against, so keep this in mind. This is super short-term advice. In terms of powers, some good ones to look out for are the Grappling Hook, Hover Wings, or Abyss Specialist. Grappling Hook and Hover Wings allow you to charge your hammer and then close the distance quickly to smack people caught off guard. Abyss Specialist is awesome because it effectively lets you dash twice across the abyss, and Oath rocks over the abyss. Aside from that, there isn't too much more to it when you are first starting out on Oath. The biggest thing to remember is that Oath is not your standard support. He is a hybrid between a tank and a support that has to make sure he balances taking space with peeling for his team. And do not forget to call out your big slams. I'm watching you, brother. Moving on, last but certainly not least, we have Zeph. Compared to his counterparts, he has the most impact on his team's position and ability to get the most out of his teammates' kits. He excels when he is able to amplify someone's value alongside generating his own throughout the fight. Let's start by taking a look at his passives. Yes, that's right, he has 2 of them. although they are tied to his other abilities, so we'll explain them better later. If you do hit an enemy, the next attack you hit on them with an ability does double damage. Take from this that a lot of Zeph's damage output relies on combos outside of just poking forever. Let's discuss why by shifting our focus to his auto attack. Zeph's M1 shoots out projectile gusts of wind that deal damage to enemies based on the charge level. By just spamming the left click, Zeph shoots a small gust of wind doing a low amount of damage. However, by holding the gust until the first bar above Zeph's head fills up, he shoots a slightly larger gust that does a much greater amount of damage and also pierces enemies. Be careful though, if you hold for too long, you will move a lot slower and will be an easy target to hit. His auto attack might not be the best in terms of damage, but what it really does a good job at is pressuring enemies off of strong positions. For example, a few well-timed auto attacks will force a flanker to think twice before inting into your team and make sure that your mana stays filled for the duration of the fight, as it gives mana back for every hit. By introducing Zeph's right click, the heal blast, his auto attack becomes much more interesting in my opinion though. Bound to right click by default, the heal blast can be sent to allies to heal them. It can also be sent through multiple of your allies if they are within the target's path to Zeph, further amplifying your healing output and saving on that precious mana of yours. You can also target yourself, but the healing is only half as effective. Finding ways to weave in healing amongst dealing damage to the enemy is extremely fun and makes Zeph have a highly replayable neutral loop. That being said, you can't just keep blasting heals to everyone. The ability has 3 charges at level 2 on a rather short cooldown, but it is easy to run out of them early in the fight and wish you had more of them for later. So make sure you line up your teammates and only use the heal when it'll get close to max value. Small poke doesn't really matter here in the mid fight. Heal the big damage. That being said, lining your teammates up can be pretty hard, but what is nice is that it will subconsciously help you maintain solid positioning and avoid getting caught out too early in the fight. Now that we have talked about his main combo, it's time to talk about what really defines Zeph as a character, and that is his Cyclone Dash. This ability is so strong as it allows your team to move around the map without your allies having to expend their dash. Imagine launching your oath into a team to slam and then he gets to dash back out since he didn't even have to use it to go in. Pretty cool, huh? The way the ability works is that after you charge it for a short duration, all allies and ally wisps get launched in the direction you are facing. It's pretty simple, all things considered, but what you want to look out for is dashing teammates that are low and trying to get them out, dashing teammates in that are looking to execute a target, or to dash over large areas of the abyss to avoid getting spiked. My favorite aggressive combo is launching a Celeste ult into the enemy team and creating the ultimate oh shit moment. It's a classic. Oh, and you can also tap the dash to avoid things like kingpin hooks and all that jazz, but this shouldn't be your go-to. You should really try to place yourself safely first. The skill ceiling for this ability is incredibly high and can mess your team up pretty bad if used incorrectly, but when perfected, you will get all the praise sung in your name in no time. Every ability that we have discussed thus far already makes Zeph a pretty nasty character, but when you add in his stun grenade, he transcends into a godly force to be reckoned with. Bound to E by default, Zeph Kobe's a grenade at his enemies that pulls them into the center, stunning them for a short duration. This ability is perfect to start fights with, as it is a great way to set up ultimate combos that obliterate, and I mean obliterate, the enemy team. That being said, it only stuns targets if at least 2 of them are smacked together. Player or mob, it does not matter. It just has to be 2. It isn't the end of the world if you can only hit 1 though, as it will slow down the target and allow you to catch up to them. In terms of hitting better nades, try to look out for when players waste their dash, as they will have a really hard time getting away from the ability then. But now let's round off Zeph's kit with his ultimate ability. Available at level 5, Zeph launches a huge gust of air that goes through walls, healing teammates for a ton, and does a considerable chunk of damage. If an ally is in Wisp form, the ultimate will apply a Guardian Angel effect on them, reviving them over time without you needing to stand on them. Just like his heal on right click, you want to try and line this ultimate up with as many characters as possible, this time both friendlies and enemies though. The more you hit, the more value the ultimate gets. Because the projectile goes extremely far, you can also use it to spike teams that run away from a fight that they are losing, which is pretty dang fun. Make sure though that you do not hold on to the ultimate forever. The perfect scenario where you hit 7 people with your ultimate will just not happen all of the time. And I would argue that the heal is much more impactful than the damage. If you can full heal your team mid-fight but can't find the damage, it is not the end of the world, and I would still consider it a success. Now let's talk about what abilities you should get and in what order. On the drop, if my team is safe, I usually intend on picking up the stun grenade and launching it into the first mob pack. Then I would pick up the dash at level 2. If my team is not safe, I usually would swap the two. Then at level 3, I am picking up the heal and then putting an upgrade into my dash at level 4. Level 5 is your ultimate, and currently I just max out my dash at level 9. Items are pretty simple on Zeph, just like they were on Elluna. It is almost always Tech Blade and Mana Blade. You should always be placed in a spot where it is hard to get to and you aren't taking a lot of damage, and you want to pressure and heal as much as possible. These items help you in doing just that. Powers typically revolve around keeping yourself alive and active. I like having Chonker as it can force aggressive melee characters away from me. I also like Mana Cloud as it keeps me and my team's mana filled throughout the fight, which is super nice. But at the end of the day, if I find a Guardian Angel, I'm picking it up 9 times out of 10. Try out all the powers like I said before if you're just starting out though, and see what you like. If you take nothing else from this part of the guide, make sure that you understand that Zeph excels by amplifying his team with his dash. If a character wants to get in, get them in. If a character wants to poke for longer, dash them away from the enemy and let them. Everything else is about placing yourself safely, practicing, and recognizing patterns. And just like that, we have covered the basics that you need to know for all of the protectors currently available in SUPERVIVE. Basics might be a bit of a stretch though, considering just how deep this game gets super quick. So if you have questions, please don't be afraid to reach out, even if the game isn't currently available to playtest when you are watching. Trust me, all I want to do is talk about this game no matter what. I'll be streaming every playtest I can on twitch.tv/PazSwagger and here on YouTube, or you can get a hold of me on my Discord when I'm not live. Links are all in the description. Aside from that, thank you all so much for watching, but until next time, I've got to peace out and Paz out. I'll see you in the next one.